Hello, Steve White, Steve White 39. Okay, I'm going to talk about PETA today. Now, I know PETA has a bad reputation, but it's not just about PETA, it's about the ethical treatment of animals, which is what PETA stands for, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Now, I understand that science does need to experiment on animals. I do accept that as the fundamental truth, but how it's done is the issue. It can be done humanely, and there's only some circumstances where it actually needs to be done. A lot of things that animals were experimented on, it's not necessary. They can be. The experimentation can be done on humans who can volunteer. There are other scientific methods that can test things, and some things that we just don't need to know. We don't need to be doing psychological torture on animals to work out how they react. We don't need to know that. We don't need to torture an animal to know it's going to suffer and become dysfunctional. But this is what a lot of people are doing. And it's been an industry that has existed for decades. There are people who their whole careers were just torturing animals for research or under the guise of scientific research, which a lot of it wasn't. A lot of people are just creating jobs for themselves. And a lot of these people just hate animals and either are indifferent or actually enjoy torturing them. And just thinking of the most bizarre and sadistic things that situations they can put animals in to see how they react, and apparently that's supposed to benefit humanity somehow. So, I mean, I saw a bunch of videos, and I stumbled onto some videos of monkeys being tortured and being exploited for basically entertainment and people getting paid to have YouTube videos. And I found this kind of disturbing. And then while I was watching those, I came across some videos on, scientific experiments. And that was pretty disturbing as well. And I want to talk about that as well. I sort of want to do a separate video. Now, I skipped past the footage of animals that I grew up with, like dogs and cats and rabbits. But I saw a bit of it, and it was all pretty disturbing. Basically, a lot of these animals are experimented with, and they're just thrown back in their cages. They're confusing, they're bleeding, they're vomiting, they're frothing at the mouth, they're just stumbling around in their own blood, just absolute messes. They're not cared for, they're not taken care of, they're not treated humanely, they're not treated ethically. And that is the least we can do. If we're going to experiment on animals who can't consent because we need to experiment on the animals before we try things on humans, because a lot of those people from PETA, they may argue that this shouldn't happen, but when it comes to their family getting sick or their child or parent getting sick, if there isn't a medical treatment, they're going to be upset about why not. And a lot of them, come from these sort of experiments, so they are a necessary evil, but they are being done far too often and apparently with no regulation, and that's what needs to change. Some examples now, I'll go back to the oldest ones, which are I think the most disturbing. A lot of these ones were just psychological experiments just to see what would happen if you tortured an animal. How would it react? Apparently that had some scientific merit, but it just seems to have been done just to give people a job. There are people who just imagine all these scenarios. Let's just do this, and then they get a grant and spend 6 months torturing an animal and then doing a report, and apparently that's supposed to benefit humanity somehow. Okay. I think the worst example was this one doctor. I'm not mentioning any names in any of my videos, but he created the pit of despair. He had suffered depression at some point in his career, and he wanted to see what would happen to animals if they were depressed. He wanted to make depressed animals and do tests on them. So he created this, it was like a upside down pyramid, just metal, slippery, straight metal, just going straight down, and having no bottom, and the top was like a cage with like the animals could look out, but they couldn't get out, wire, and basically they'd take monkeys, very young monkeys that hadn't really spent time with their parents or anything, and they just throw them in these pits. Now some of them would be in there for months or years, and they would just see how they reacted. Now, in the beginning, they'd all crawl up to the top and cling onto the wire and look out and relate to the world around them and look out. But eventually they couldn't hold on. There was no way to stay up because just the design of the device. They'd eventually slip back down to the bottom of the pit, and they eventually just stopped trying. They would just stay there, they just lie at the bottom of the pit, unresponsive, and not move, because they gave up. They knew there was no point. No matter what they did, they would end up back down there, and they just gave up and just stayed there. And some of them would be in there for 3 months, like 3 months, just stuck in this, just crammed in the bottom of this pit. And they could be recovered. Ones that were there for 6 months, they couldn't be recovered, and they would just be damaged forever and die. And then ones who were left there for a year or more, they would just, I think they died, I think they killed themselves, or they just died. And all this, for what reason? What did it benefit to know if you put an animal in an impossible situation that it can't comprehend or escape, it's going to be psychologically damaged, become dysfunctional, despondent? And did you need to torture an animal to realise that? Because I could have worked that out on myself. I don't need to do an experiment to know that. Just like a human, same thing. If you did that to a human, but although a human they would know intellectually that this is the situation and they're psychologically affected, and they could maybe counter it and fight against it and survive differently. Animals, they don't have that that level of conscience and intelligence, so they just suffer and die basically, and it's just horrific. Another one, they wanted to see how a mother would react to her children if she was raped, and they built this device to put her in. So they would just bring in monkey after monkey to just rape her because she couldn't defend herself. She was stuck in this position to be violated. And shock horror, she didn't have a normal development, and she ended up injuring. I think she killed the babies. She resented them because of how she was impregnated and how she was treated. She became dysfunctional and she killed the babies. So what did that contribute to humanity? What was what did that do for us? Why do we need to see that? What did that do? I mean, it's just needless. It's pointless. It's just people creating jobs for themselves. And as far as I know, this stuff is long in the past and it's not happening anymore. But there does still seem to be an excessive amount of research done on animals, because a lot of technology now has removed the need for it, and a lot of it wasn't really, it had no real scientific method anyway. It's just people creating their own employment and, maintaining a cottage industry because that's how they earn a living. That's what they've always done. They have these research labs and, they use them. I think the worst example, though, the one that upset me the most, there was this monkey, they took it to experiment on. They took it when it was a baby. It was very young. They immediately put like a mask on it, like a little helmet that covered its eyes, and it had like a sonic unit on it or something. And they were supposed to be doing some sort of experiment, trying to see how it would react, not being able to see or something. I don't know what they were trying to achieve, but at some point somebody rescued it, and they had footage of this monkey being rescued and going in, and of course it's blind. It doesn't know who or what it is because it has had no socialization or relation to any other animal or human or anything, and it was just clinging to the people. It didn't know where or what it was, and they took the mask off and that, and what they revealed underneath was that they'd sewed the animal's eyes shut, and that was my breaking point. That was where I just started crying. I just was like, this is just horrific. What kind of a person could sew a baby monkey's eyes shut? I just couldn't comprehend. It was too much, and I just got really upset, and I'm like, this is wrong. Now, the good news was that they were able to save the monkey. They removed the stitches. It was able to see. They fed it, they took care of it, they gave it to a surrogate mother. The surrogate mother took care of it. It basically had a happy life after that. It was able to be saved, and it had a happy ending. But not all animals have these happy endings. A lot of them just suffer needlessly and die horribly. Now, Peter's rescued a lot of animals, and I respect them for that, and I hope they continue doing this, because a lot of these situations aren't necessary for the animals to be in the first place. So as much as some of them are over the top and just want attention for themselves, others are really fighting for something they believe in, and maybe they are a little crazy, but I mean, if you really believed animals were on the same level as us and you cared about them as much as you did humans, and you saw them being treated like this, you get a bit upset about it. So I have a bit more understanding now, and they're not all just crazy do-gooders. Some of them are really doing some good. And I just wanted to do a video talking about it because, like I said, YouTube is sort of my therapy, and this is really disturbing and traumatizing. And sort of what I understand is that some regulations have been changed, and you know, it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still pretty bad, and they need to keep working on this, and they just need to get to the point where we're only experimenting on animals for the absolute most necessary causes, and when they are treated well. They are, you know, they're given medicine and antibiotics and painkillers, and they're being nursed back to health after the experiments instead of just thrown in a cage to bleed to death, confused and in pain. And, you know, it didn't need to be done that way. And, you know, hopefully they won't do it like that in the future. I'm not going to become some activist. I just wanted to do a video about this. I wanted to talk about it. And I hope maybe some people might listen to this who didn't realise this was happening and just thought PETA were a joke, might actually watch this. So I just wanted to add my voice to that, just add another video to that side of things. And also, like I said, just to talk about it, because this is my therapy, because I found it really traumatic after watching it, and I feel a bit better talking about it and doing a video. I feel like I've done something, even if I haven't. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think. Yeah, I'm going to go. Thanks. Bye.